Welcome back to the Purpose Over Profits podcast. I'm Jim Floyd, owner of Ascent Total Performance.
And I'm Jeremy Powers, owner of Powers Insurance Experts.
Well, Jeremy, today we have the pleasure of having Margaret Clay, the editor of Columbia Metropolitan Magazine, in the studio. So welcome, Margaret.
Thank you for having me.
So we're really excited to have you here. And we're going to talk all about just like Columbia, your story of your family founding the magazine, and really kind of progressing through all kinds of stuff and how much y'all support the community of Columbia. So really, really excited about that.
Absolutely. So let us know, what is your title at the magazine?
I'm the editor and associate publisher.
Perfect. And I'm guessing maybe you work with at least one other family member?
One or two
or
My
seven.
parents started the magazine in 1990. Columbia did not have a city magazine, and it was one of the 3 fastest growing cities in the Southeast.
Wow.
I believe it was Atlanta and Charlotte were the only 2 that beat it, and Columbia was the only one that didn't have a magazine. Mm-hmm. And so fast forward 34 years almost, and I'm the oldest and work for my parents. They're both still at the helm as co-publishers. And my younger 2 sisters both work there full time as well.
That's incredible. Did you ever see yourself growing up? Like, did you say, no, I'm not going to do this, I have my own plans? Or did you say, wow, like this is what I want to be involved in?
So I actually had a bit of an identity crisis when I was 10. I look a lot like my mom, which anyone who's ever met us,
I can agree.
Everyone tells us this. And I started to sound just like her, which is still the case also. Our voices are very similar. And so I found that we had a lot of similar interests when I was about 10. And so I would frequently tell my mom that I was never going to be editor of the magazine because that was her role at the time. Yep. So never say never. And I've fully embraced being a lot like my mom now. It's a very, very wonderful thing.
Yeah, you have a pretty outstanding mother. Every time I've had an interaction with her, true. I'm like, hey, if you're adopting, I'll bring the paperwork, you know. So.
Yeah. So I think that's an interesting story, even just from the start of recognizing a need for something and that wasn't being filled.
Right.
And so even way back in 1990 of recognizing that that's something that Columbia needed and filling that role.
Absolutely. Right. And our mission at the magazine started and always has been, still is, to showcase Columbia as the amazing community that it is, to tell all of the amazing stories. People always ask us, it's probably the top question I get, is how do y'all come up with enough stories for every issue? And that is not anywhere near the top of our problems. We could put out a magazine every week if we had the manpower, because the stories are there. That is just not even an issue. Columbia is just chock full of amazing people and stories.
That's incredible. One thing I want to ask before we dive into the magazine, because I think it's fun. We have, you'll hear people say, don't go into business with family, or, this, that, and other. So I want to ask you something that you really enjoy about this family-made business and being a part of that, but also for other entrepreneurs out there who are maybe new into family business, like maybe, I want to say some constructive criticism or something that you would say maybe you should look out for and always be aware of to make sure that everyone's feelings are heard and all of these things. So a good and maybe a, hey, this is something I would certainly think about so that things don't go awry.
It's going to be hard for me to answer the second part of your question, because happily we just all do really get along well. And that's not to say that we don't ever disagree on something, but for the most part, we're on the same page. And I do think that's important with any family that's going to work together, is that you share the same vision. And so occasionally you may have different perspectives on how to execute that vision. But when the vision is shared, then you're going to acknowledge, well, this person feels, my sister feels really strongly about this. So even though I don't agree, I'm going to give on this because our vision's the same. And if she feels that strongly about it, then I need to hear her and she has a point. And other people are probably going to have that same perspective. And so I'd say that we all have that perspective in working together, which if anyone feels really strongly, we're willing to be a team and work together on those things.
And I think with that, you just nailed it for any organization that's out there. Being able to value people's opinions, communicate well, and also have all those things factor in. And that's what helps to create a healthy work environment and a successful work environment.
And props to your family for not making you feel that way. So many family organizations say, okay, well, we started this, not only are you our children, but, we are the creators of this, so you're just going to fall in line. And so what I would say is that's a testament to your family as well, that you would be able to come in here and say, hey, we really don't have that. but this is what I would say. So I almost think that in a way you did let folks know, like, hey, if this isn't happening in your organization or you're worried that it might drift in that direction, be intentional about making everyone feel heard and about caring about, you know, everyone's feelings in any given situation.
Absolutely. And I do just have to give my parents credit for not only creating a wonderful business and what I view as a wonderful product, but also creating that atmosphere and that culture of, honestly, of humility. You know, it takes humility, I think, to acknowledge that your perspective might not be the right one all the time, you know, and to be willing to give when someone else has a strong opinion. And like you said, my parents definitely don't have we started it and this is the way we've been doing it, so it's the way we're going to do it. Quite the opposite.
Yeah, I know. And I had a chance to sit in front of them at that whole 35 round table. It was just, man, just such a great group. And you could tell that everyone there that was a part of that interview process, they weren't there because they had. They were there because they wanted to be, and they were bought in, and the vision. And I mean, it was just a first time for me that I had ever been a part of something like that. And I would just say that walking out there, I was like, wow, like, they really care about what this isn't just a ploy to get someone to be a sponsor or this or that. They really seem to genuinely care about making sure they lift up this community, which to me, everything that I know about you guys is you're embedded in Columbia. You want to be what represents Columbia. And I think that it definitely shines through, not only with the quality of a magazine that you put out, but also behind closed doors. Whenever folks like myself are brought into the organization, you walk out feeling like, man, like they practice what they preach.
Oh, well, thank you. It's a very nice thing to say.
I think, so we're like probably like 8 minutes into this episode so far, and it's like we've already had 1 million leadership lessons just on those things. Y'all's mission, I know you've talked about it a little bit, but I know you had a very memorable quote about kind of what the passion is and how, and what do y'all, like the big focus on everything that y'all do.
Well, we always say that the magazine is about 3 things: people, and people. Yeah. And it just goes back to that mentality that everyone has a story to tell. You just have to find out what it is. Mm-hmm. We were not even planning, this wasn't on our radar, to do a story on loquat trees. But a gentleman came in who wanted to buy a copy of the magazine for some reason. And I don't even know how it came up, but his grandfather had been this amazing gardener, and he had this loquat tree that was exceptionally large in his yard that had been a seedling from his grandfather's. And he just knew all this stuff about loquat trees, and he was in real estate. And so he would give his clients the seedlings. And so his grandfather's tree was now all over Columbia. And we're like, you know, that's amazing.
That's a cool story.
Yeah. And so we did the story on loquat trees and how to grow them, and this man's cool family story. And I now have a loquat tree growing in my yard. And so it's just, you know, everyone has something.
Yeah. Daniel, we're going to flash an image of a loquat tree because I feel completely oblivious right now to what a loquat tree is. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
You know what it is.
I'm sure I do when I see it. You know, so, well, you know, I would agree with that because it's something I want to bring up. And if you haven't held this magazine in your hand, you wouldn't know what I'm talking about. But when you do, you will. If it were profits, and not people, you know, or purpose, it would be a much less quality magazine. That's the one thing I'll say. There's 4 magazines out on our desk right now. One of them is yours. And when you pick it up, the quality and the craftsmanship of that magazine, the stock, card stock or paper stock, whatever you call it, is just such a high quality. And that is intentional, I'm sure. And I just want to know a little bit more about that. Not necessarily how they're made or things like that, but like, what's the reason that you went with such a quality magazine when you probably could pay half the cost and have, you know, a flimsy, but yet still get your message out magazine?
Well, I think that people really appreciate the tactile experience of a nice magazine, of good paper, and photography is our number one focus, I'd say, in planning the issue, is what stories are going to have enough strong photography to carry our feature well. We always have at least 18, if not more, uninterrupted pages, really more with the home showcase. It's more 24 pages of uninterrupted editorial with no ads in it to really showcase strong photography and beautiful images, beautiful design and layouts. And that's just, to me, the purpose of someone sitting down to read a magazine. the world has gone so digital with news, because that was never the purpose of reading a news publication. You wanted the facts, you wanted the information. You weren't sitting down for a sensory experience.
Yeah.
Whereas magazines are still doing really, really well. In fact, city magazines have been booming for the past 10 years or so, because while people are getting their news online largely, people still want a lifestyle magazine. Yeah. And we want to showcase Columbia well, and showcase the high-end lifestyle opportunities that are here. And so I think that goes along with having a product that feels high quality. And that it certainly has been very intentional the past few years, because our paper costs are up about 70%. So sticking with the high quality paper is definitely an intentional choice that we continue to make, because we think it matters.
Yeah. And it's noticed.
Yeah. And I love that too, of that becomes an even greater differentiator for local media things and all that stuff. And so, and honestly, like with the quality of the magazine too, I would venture to guess that if you had your eyes closed, you picked it up, you know what magazine it is. Things like that too. And those are the things like what you're talking about, that tactile sense and the uninterrupted span of pages without any ads and or anything like that. Those are the big differentiators that are just not present in the market with other publications too. So it's that just one step above.
Yeah,
actually, I was probably multiple steps above.
No, absolutely. I was very intrigued to hear, like, it's so cool as me as a reader to hear you talking about like the strategic layout of a magazine. Like, it's so beautiful how intricate businesses are, and how it's like, well, we have to have this, and we want to have so many uninterrupted pages. Me as a consumer, I'm sure mentally I see that when I'm reading it, and I'm not getting ad after ad after ad, but I don't think about that. But the fact that in any organization, you have to think about what is step 1 to step 12. What is everything that you're looking to do? And I just thought it was cool to like dive deep for a moment without even realizing it, and hear like, wow, like there's so much strategy that goes into creating a publication that people are going to enjoy. I know when I've been through a few marketing meetings and just learning more about your publication, I was so intrigued to hear the listening, the reading audience and some of those statistics. And you alluded to it a moment ago with how many people are still using that. So what would be your sales pitch, your education point to local businesses who are listeners of this podcast and say, you know what, I haven't tried this medium yet. I'm maybe interested in it. Why would you say now is a better time than ever?
Well, when you look at the statistics that marketing firms have done, they're just wanting to know what is the raw data. It's not agenda-driven study. It's fascinating to look at what marketing research is uncovering about print in this digital era. 93% of adults still read magazines. The fastest growing sector of magazine readers are women, I think aged 24 to 35. And people retain things better in print. There's a higher trust factor. People trust things more just inherently if they see it in print versus on a screen. Yeah. And the retention level, I can't remember the percentage, but it was really high. It was shockingly high that the brain processes things differently when you see it on a printed page. And I'll vouch for that, because when articles first come into me, I edit them in Word document on the screen, obviously. And then when it gets to layout, occasionally I'll be like, this had to have crept in somewhere along after it came to me. And I will go look it up in my logs on the computer. And sure enough, it was right there. And you just don't catch things on the screen. And I think it's part of that same brain function that we do better with print, with our memory and retention and comprehension and all of that. And so I think that print just, it just does well. It does well for businesses, and it's all about branding. And so, we tell new clients, when your first ad runs, don't expect the phone to just ring off the hook the first week that the magazine comes out. It's more about that long-term, that long, slow burn of piggybacking off of the brand that we've created and creating that positive image. And so when someone goes to call, they might not have just that day looked at your ad, but it's a process of building that brand recognition so that when they have the need, you're who comes to mind. And readers tell us that they view our magazine like a word of mouth reference.
Yeah, that's great. I know you guys have some great retention as well, as far as the people who do. I think statistically what I was looking at, it's a good amount of folks you don't duplicate failure. And so folks that are continuously investing in it obviously see the ROI. And as a business owner, Jim and I, we both would agree, like you don't waste money. You make we all make bad decisions, but you don't say, okay, let me sign up for that again. And so to know that you have that retention from a paid vendor or however you sponsor standpoint is incredible, And like I said, my eyes were open when I sat down and really saw that. And I think it certainly just an incredible thing that you guys have going overall.
Well, thank you. Yes, it is in fact rare for our clients who sign up for a package not to renew the next year. I mean, no one has a 100% retention, and there's different factors playing in, but it's very much the exception and not the norm, because people see the needle move so significantly when they're consistently running with us.
To really piggyback off of that, and to kind of back up to a little bit of our earlier conversation, I think a lot of that is accomplished by just the intentionality of how things are set up. So how y'all set up the magazine, the layout, all the quality of the printing and all that kind of stuff. Same thing for you, Jeremy, of the intentionality of how you structure a potential customer conversation, all that kind of stuff. Same thing for me and everything that I do. And that goes back to anytime we're running a small business or anything like that, even if it's not perceptible from the customer side, there's that intentionality from our side of this is why we're doing this. And so we want it to look seamless and all that stuff, but it's actually 15 different things that we're intentionally doing all day, every day to make that. And I just wanted to really echo that and drive that home, because I think it's something that's missed a lot, especially for people who are just starting out.
100%.
Not having those really refined things. So I think it goes to show, just with the long history of success with the magazine, of just having that from the start.
That's right.
Leaning into it and even enhancing it more. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I have two questions. The first one is you have to hear about things like ChatGPT and AI and all of those wonderful things. I'm very intrigued to know, how is that making its way into being an aid for you guys potentially in your line of work with the copywriting and all? Or is it something that you're like, man, this is actually a hindrance and people need to know? Like, I'm just interested to know if it's all involved in what you do, and maybe how so.
I guess it certainly could be, seeing how it all pans out. It's such cutting edge technology at this point. We haven't really looked into implementing that at this point. As far as these opportunities for them to, these chat GPT, it just can generate an article, and so I don't know if we'll ever use that at this point. That's part of the, I guess, intentionality of our stories is having a local writer who people know and who can, we don't want articles that just anybody would do. We always want there to be some connection. And so, for example, Tom Barbian is a counselor at the Christian Counseling Center at First Pres, and he'll occasionally write counseling articles, how to avoid, discord in your marriage, how to plan for difficult family encounters over the holidays, just various topics. And so while those topics are universal and any magazine could publish them, he's local. He's someone that people know and can call on for more information or, for further advice. And so if there's a topic that isn't local, we want it to be a local person.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
I don't foresee AI being able to interview people and ask the kind of probing heartbeat, human interest questions. Who knows? Maybe it will be able to. But
one day we'll go back and listen to this.
Yet.
Somebody's going to be at 46 listening to this and like, oh, you guys are crazy.
Well, that continues to be the differentiator too.
Yeah, because I think you can tell that, we utilize it a little bit in our business, and then we kind of edit it and work with it and things such as that. But just always intrigued in your industry. I'm sure it has to be a buzzword, a hot item. My second one, and that I want to talk about and spend a little bit of time on before we wrap up, is all the work that goes into best of competitions. Because it's a servant heart, because I think that people underestimate all the work and all the, I can't believe I was not in the top 3 that you probably get when it comes to starting something like this. So I want to ask, number one, how many years has the best of Columbia Metropolitan, how many years has that been going on now?
I believe my parents started it the first year of the magazine. So I think 1990 or 91 was the first year of Best of Columbia.
And so walk me through just that. I mean, because that's a season. It's a multiple month process. What would you say is like, what do you get out of that personally? Like what excites you and just overall just want to go through that, because it's a special time for a lot of businesses that really just enjoy, the recognition that they deserve.
Absolutely. And it's very special for us too. It definitely strikes at the heart of our mission of highlighting the businesses that get people excited and that are doing a great job. And not only that, are being successful on the business end of things, but that are serving the community by meeting needs that people have and desires that people have, whether it's good food or good shopping or insurance or whatever it is. And so it's a very heavy lift every year. It is a huge process. It starts in the spring when we have nominations on our website. And we then go through and tally all the nominations, which is no small thing because people spell things differently or list them differently. Yeah, sure. And so we culminate with the top 5. We figure out who the top 5 businesses are in each category, and then those are on the ballot. So it's a lot to contact everybody, but we do that, and it's always exciting to let people know they've been nominated. Whether it's for the first time, that's exciting, or if they've been nominated again. Yeah. And then the voting takes place. It's live now. It takes place September 1st through October 13th. And then it's super fun to get to call and tell people that they've won.
I nominated you for best barbecue spot because we had that barbecue at your office that one time, so I wasn't thinking that day. So I apologize. That's what she had. That's what she's talking about, having to go through it and fix things, because I make mistakes, Jim. I make mistakes. No, that sounds incredible. So it's just such a fun time, and to celebrate with those winners and I know I don't want to say, but I want to say, are you potentially maybe up for some of these type of awards or whatnot?
There's not a physical therapy.
I know we need to fix that.
I want to bring that up. We'll bring that up. We brought you on here because we think there should be in the future a physical therapy type.
Noted for sure.
But we are up, and I will say that we are super thankful to Columbia for that nomination. And at the end of the day, I know that if there were one, you'd probably make up at least 3 of your reps would all make up those top 3 spots.
Yes, pretty much everyone in our family, and therefore a large part of our office sees Jim. So he's got all of our votes for sure.
That's right. No, absolutely. He does a wonderful job. And just to hear him, another local business owner, before we ever really met, I mean, just how high, usually when you think of someone who is then trying to get you to be a part of a magazine or a publication, you don't ever say like super kind of like they keep coming by or they won't leave me alone or I'm just going to do it so they leave me alone. It's usually not like glowing reviews. And so usually you're pretty quick and to the point. So whenever he says such great things, I'm like, okay, like they've got to be good people. So I think it's just once again, a testament to who you guys are, that when you're talked about in the community, it's not like, man, they won't stop coming here. They won't leave me alone. It's like, man, I really enjoy that family and what they do. And once again, you guys are living testimony to what your business is who you are. And I think that is what I love so much about Columbia, and why our agency, even though we could work from home, is here located on Lady Street, because we're so in love with the people and what they stand for and just the overall culture that's being built in Columbia. Because I truly do believe that this, people talk about Greenville or they'll talk about Charleston, like Columbia is beautiful. And I think that more people need to talk about it. And you guys are doing just that. And we really appreciate that.
Oh, well, it's our honor and our privilege to get to showcase Columbia. It's an amazing place.
Yep. Yeah. So I like you. I think I need to be the third person to say that Columbia is awesome. And so we really appreciate the focus on that. And we don't get to see that a whole lot too. And just being able to highlight all the great things that are happening with that. And y'all do a great job with that too. I do also want to commend you with this being your first ever podcast you've ever been a guest on. You did awesome.
Oh, so great.
And thank you.
So big thing to just kind of wrap us up. So I love that mantra of the 3 things you focus on are always going to be people, people, people. And I think, honestly, that's a great lesson for anybody that's going to be running a business. Anything like that that has to be the root. if you want to be successful, especially if we're going purpose over profits kind of things too. So I think that kind of sums up things too. So if somebody was interested in reaching out or just more interested or even just getting the magazine or anything like that, what would be the best way to contact or be able to make contact with y'all?
Absolutely. People can subscribe on our website. Super easy. There's a subscribe button on the top right corner of our homepage. Yeah. And believe we're also this week getting it set up so that people can order back issue copies there as well. For the current issue, we direct people to the newsstands. We don't sell them out of the office. And Whole Foods is extremely good about keeping it stocked and putting it out right away. But most of the grocery stores around town do carry the magazine. And then as far as advertising goes, that pretty much all goes through Henry. And so Henry at columbiametro.com if anyone wants to email and inquire about advertising opportunities.
And y'all are on all the social channels and all that stuff as well too. So
I'll say that you guys do an amazing job with your social channels, number one. I really do think you guys have an outstanding, the amount you post and what you post and the content, it's all, you can tell you care a lot about the way it looks. I mean, like photography is a big deal. Quality is a big deal. You guys are like the Chick-fil-A of the publication world. And that's an honor. I want to also say I had a small celebrity moment before we get off. I every year, about 10 to 12 guys from my church, I usually buy like an Airbnb just to get everyone away. Like, let's just, because guys just don't, like, we just don't ever take time and just like build community. And so I was like, I want to change that. And so I usually get like a local Airbnb. It has like a barbecue, or a grill, and it has a pool and whatever. We just like have a day or two where it's like, hey, let's just get intentional about like growing and just like getting to know each other better. We'll walk in and what do I know on the kitchen counter or like the table somewhere is the magazine with the 35 under 35. And then so somebody picked it up and they're like, oh, like it's like literally like, here I am. And like this, it was in a moment's time. It was like a little bit of one of those small celebrity moments. And so I just want to say thank you guys. It took 300,000 pictures to get that one that we could use. But after that, it was just such a funny moment. I was a little embarrassed, but like, it was so cool to be like, wow, like we were in that magazine. And so I can tell you from someone who experienced it, what an honor it was. And man, you guys did such a great job of celebrating all the winners. And it was awesome to also get to network with them and just be around other like-minded people in Columbia. So from someone who's won, thank you guys so much. It was an incredible experience and it was great having you with us today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much.